My name is Ralph W. Wendell Garrett. I was born May 7th, 1927, in the old Princeton home at 1127 East Princeton Avenue. And we lived about 5 blocks from Grandma Tolman, and she is the one that delivered me into this world on May 7th, 1927. I can remember as a youngster, we used to sleigh ride on Princeton Hill from 13th East, and we really had a good time there. That was no traffic, and we could come all the way down that hill clear to 11th East from 13th East. When my parents moved to 533 South 10th East, I was probably 9 years old by then. We moved on to 533 South 10th East in Salt Lake City, and belonged to the old 33rd Ward. I can remember when I was 14 years old, I was in a friend's home after priesthood meeting on a Sunday when Pearl Harbor was bombed. And we looked at each other, and we were both only 14. I thought, well, the war will be over by the time we're 18. We won't have to worry. But that wasn't the way it was. When I got near my 18th birthday, I joined the Navy a month before my 18th birthday. And during that year, I had graduated from East High School the year previous to 1945, but I didn't want to start college because I knew I'd be drafted right in the middle of a semester, because you received your draft notice on your 18th birthday. And that's when I met my sweetheart, Alta. And when I saw her walk down that hallway in East High School, I was flabbergasted at her beauty. And she knocked me right off my feet. I said, I got to get acquainted with that girl. And it took 5 askings before she would go out. And she told me she had been chased home from Liberty Park by 5 boys and scared her to death. She didn't want to have anything to do with boys anymore. But I finally went over, and she went out with me. And I remember that first date. We went to a show and then down to the old Royal Dairy on Main Street to get a malt. And it cost me about $3.50 that night for that first date. And she lived on 1201 First Avenue in Salt Lake, and I was at 533 South 10th East. So I had a driver's license, but I didn't have a car, so I'd walk up to her place and then walk home. But I had to be home by 10 o'clock every night, or my mom and dad would be after me. So I'd make sure I got home at 10 o'clock. But one night I was a little late, and I thought, boy, I got to sneak in the house without my mom knowing this. But lo and behold, when I opened up that front door, there she was sitting in that rocking chair, waiting for me to get home. I couldn't finish that postgraduate year at East High School because I knew I'd get drafted. And I did join the Navy on a month before my 18th birthday, because I didn't want to go in the Army in World War II. And I went through boot camp in San Diego, California, and then they elected me to go to pharmacy school, so I became a pharmacist mate and served in the San Diego Naval Hospital on the psycho ward. And then I was transferred to went to the Corona Naval Hospital on the psycho ward. And when I was in Corona, that's about 40 miles from Alhambra, California, where Lois and her family lived. And I got a call from them that said, Alta is down here. I said, she's down visiting you right now? And they said, yes. And I said, oh boy, I'm going to go see the captain right now. I'll get down there. And I got down there on a Thursday, and she took her money purse out of her pocket and handed me a $10 bill. And she said, save 2 of this for a marriage license. And I said, you can't be telling me that for real, are you? She said, yes, Ralph, if you don't marry me, I'm not going home. I will stay with Aunt Dorothy down here in El Cajon, California. And I said, well, how come you're not going home out there? And she said, well, I accepted a date with another boy, and when I left to go in the Navy, I told her to go out, even though we were going pretty steady. And that boy had to drive up to Hennifer, Utah from Ogden, which is 30 miles up Weber Canyon. And he went back to Ogden that night, and he rolled his car and got killed. And her mother blamed her for going out with him, accepting that date, and it really broke her heart. She said, that's why I'm not going home. I'll stay here with Aunt Dorothy. So I tried to get leave to come home and go through the Salt Lake Temple to get married, but they wouldn't give me leave, so we decided to let the Mormon bishop in Alhambra marry us. And we lived in Corona then for probably 4 months. Yeah, it was about 4 months. Had a little apartment there, and I had every other night and every other weekend liberties. Then I was transferred down to San Diego Naval Hospital, and so she went down there with me and stayed in a motel till we found a place to live. The place we finally found is unbelievable because their names were Shrums, and they lived in Point Loma, California. And they had 2 little boys. And she called them to see what kind of an arrangement would be made, and they would pay her $50 a month to take care of those kids while their mother was out playing golf and other things. And that family grew in love with Alta. And when I got transferred to go aboard ship, we knew that we would be moving out of the Shrums house, and when she told them, she said, when you leave, you have to leave at midnight, because I don't want my 2 boys to see you leave because they love you so much, Alta, and it'll break their hearts when you leave. So anyway, we left, and I went aboard the USS Columbus, which is a heavy cruiser, and Alta came home to Hennifer. Well, in September of that year, her father was killed, and he was a turkey farmer in Hennifer, Utah. And he had a flock of turkeys, about 5,000 turkeys up there, and nobody to take care of them. So they gave me emergency leave from the ship I was on, the USS Columbus, heavy cruiser. And I came home. They were going to let me stay for 15 days. But Senator Stuart Watkins, or I think think his name was Senator Watkins, made arrangements for me to get discharged because I had joined the Navy on what they called a minority cruise. So I still had 2 years to stay in the Navy. But there's 5,000 turkeys up in Hennifer that had to be fed and taken care of and marketed. So Senator Watkins went to work in whatever sources, I can't remember, but he got me out of the Navy and got me discharged. So I came home and cared for that turkey flock because Keith Paskett, Alta's older brother, was still overseas somewhere in that war. After the turkeys, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and I didn't know whether to go to college or to business school or what, so I decided to go to business school and took up accounting. And I thought I wanted to be a public accountant. And so I was very successful in that school. I loved everything we were doing there. But when I got out in the actual work, I didn't want to be a public accountant. So here I am again, wondering what I'm going to do. So my, can't remember his name, friend and I decided that we would start building small buildings, just garages, things like that. Well, Norton Johnson was this guy's name. My kids will all know him. And we had quite a few jobs lined up. And then winter was coming on, which would be a very slow winter, so I was put in the bishopric in the Cottonwood Third Ward up there in the Holiday Stake. And I went to the bishop's meeting one night, monthly bishop's meeting, one night, and Bishop Terry said, I need somebody in my office to help me run that business, to run the office and take care of all the finances and everything. So I thought, well, I better go look at that and see what that's all about. And his old warehouse building was on Pierpont Avenue. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Pierpont Avenue in Salt Lake City, but it's the first place that was built in Salt Lake, I think, and it was that old. And I walked in that office, talked to him, and I wasn't impressed at all. And I told him, I said, no, I don't think I'm interested in this. So I went home, and the next Tuesday night there was a knock on my front door. And Alan Terry was there again. He said, I'd really like you to come to work for me. And I said, well, I'm going deer hunting for 10 days. When I come back, I'll talk to you again. Well, I no sooner got home from that 10-day deer hunt and knocked on my front door again. And Alan said, Ralph, if you'll come and work for me for 30 days, I'll pay you $375. And if you don't like it after a month, you can walk out and nothing will be said. So that would have been in 1952 when I went to work there. Well, he was the owner, so I was the assistant manager at the time, and we had a pretty good business going. And then he retired, and I took over the business with two other men, Sherm Lundgren and Dean Holliday. And we were the three owners of that business then. When I retired in 1987, after 35 years serving there, I retired in 1987. And Alta and I went on a mission to Vancouver, Washington.
What year was that?
That would have been 1990. Yeah, 1990. When we went, served that mission for a year, and then came home, and I was made bishop then in the Cottonwood Third Ward.
Stop for a second. Can you tell us anything about your mission or some spiritual experiences or anything? How old were you when you served your mission?
I would have been 7, let's see. I'd be almost 80, I guess. Not quite 80. Nelda would be 79. She was a year behind me. It was a tough mission. There was just a branch in that little town of Oroville, Washington. And boy, we had a tough time just convincing to even come to church. And don't know if I should tell this story or not, but the next door neighbor where we lived stayed with some very nice people in Washington, was in the bishopric, and a message come back to me saying, I'll sure be glad when the Garretts get out of here. I wanted to go visit him and say, you won't be near as glad as the Garretts will be to get out of here. It was that tough. We got one guy baptized and his wife, one family. Worked our heads off trying to get people to even come to church, the members. So it was tough. And we were glad to get out of there and get home again. Then my church activity when I came home, I was young men's president for about 3 years. And then my favorite calling of all time at that part of my life was to be the priesthood advisor to girls' camp. And so I could see the difference between girls and boys then. All the young women present, you had to do was blow a whistle, and those girls were right there. You try to get those young men together, and they're scattered all over, and some of them wouldn't even show up. And that really impressed me, and I loved those women, those young girls. From then, well, let's see, 1990.
You said something about being called as bishop, but you didn't say anything about it.
Well, that was in the Third Ward, Cottonwood Third Ward, when I was only 27 when they called me to be bishop up there in Cottonwood Third Ward. But when I got down here in 1987, Alta and I became temple workers in the Provo Temple. Loved that calling together. We'd go there 2 days a week, Tuesday and Wednesday mornings at 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd have to get up and get over there. And and then they built the Timpanogos Temple in 96, so we were transferred up to the Timpanogos Temple. And the president there was President Robert J. Matthews. Everybody will know that name. He's a real good author, very knowledgeable, kind man. When we had our first meeting of the presidency, and he wanted me there because I had been a temple worker down in Provo and knew a little bit about it, and he had never been a temple worker. And so he made me kind of an administrator, not a counselor, because he had his counselors. But I helped organize the Timpanogos temple workers. I had a big long cupboard up there, and I had a sheet for every shift in the temple, sealing shift, baptismal shifts, and endowment room shifts. And he would interview them, and if they were accepted, I would put their names down on the sheet that they wanted to work on. And he kept me in that position until I became a sealer. I became a sealer in 1997. But I can remember one time he called me and he said, "Ralph, you've got to hide now. The temple committee's coming down there and they keep asking me, what's that guy doing here all the time?" So I went on an endowment session when they were there that day, so they didn't see me where I usually was, out in the office, just helping run things out there, you know. But then in 1996, he recommended that I be a sealer. And I was released as a sealer in March of 1921. That's a wonderful calling, a wonderful opportunity to serve the Lord and to see the happiness on people just getting married in the temple and sealed for all eternity. Nothing like it. In fact, just recently, just 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to Gilbert Temple in Arizona and seal my first great-grandson. So you never lose the sealing power, you're just not an active sealer. But I still have that sealing power. Let's see, I started, well, I told you about my job where I started Intermountain Concrete and when I retired from there. Yeah. Intermountain Concrete was a business that started in 1950 by Alan Terry. And I started working for Alan Terry in 1952 at that place on Pierpont Avenue. And then we built a new building on 17th South and about 4th West. And that building is still there today, and that business is still going strong. In fact, I went to a board of directors meeting day before yesterday. They still got me on the board even at my age. And it is still a thriving business. Still a thriving business. And in fact, they gave me $1,500 just because I'm on the board of directors and I don't do anything there anymore. Just make sure they're running things the way they should be, you know, and things like that. At Intermountain Concrete Specialties, I had nephews and all my sons work in the warehouse when they were growing up. And it was, at that time, Alan Terry had passed away by then, and so I was the head man then. And it was good for the family because they all had some good money that they were making. And we supplied anybody that had anything to do with laying concrete, pouring foundations for homes, things like that, selling expansion joints and anything to do with concrete, sealing for concrete, things like that. Very successful business. And just 2 days ago, I was at the board of directors meeting, and they last year had the best year they have ever had. So it's still growing very, very nicely. In fact, they've got branches in Logan, Ogden, Salt Lake, Draper, and Utah County, and St. George. And we started out with one little branch. So they've got some good men that are running that business now.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the start of it? How it started? Well,
Alan Terry started the business. He worked for a company called W.J. Burke in San Francisco, in the same kind of a business. And at first they sent materials up to him and just let him sell them, and then he'd remit the money to them. until he got that business going good enough that he could just do everything himself. So it was a good business even when I was there, but not nearly what it is now. It's just a lot bigger than it was when I was there even. And it grew a lot while I was there. When I was there, we had locations in Idaho and Logan and Ogden, and that was it. Now they cut out Idaho, and they've got Logan and Ogden, Salt Lake, Draper, and Provo, and St. George. So very, very nice business, and anything to do with concrete construction. Forms, we'd sell forms for foundations, sell expansion joints, curing compounds, things like that. Okay, from there, I retired in 1987. And boy, I need to tell you that when you retire, you start worrying about where your money's going to come from, but we had built up a pretty nice trust fund in the company, and when I left there, I had $239,000 in that trust fund. It was a lot of money in those days. And I decided that I would take that out of their trust fund and start my own. And I let Mike Wittenberg in Alpine have that money. And as I said, I had $239,000, and you have to start taking that money out when you're 70 years old. So I've been taking it out for 24 years. This year will be my 25th year, and it started out at $5,000 a year, and then $7,000 and $8,000. Till now, last year it was $25,000, and this year it's going to be $26,000. They tell you how much you have to take out, because of course the government wants to get all the money they can out of it. And but my last, like I said, I've been taking it out now since I was 70, and I'm 95 now. I've got more money in there than I put in to begin with. That's what kind of a job that Mike Wittenberg's doing for me. So I don't have to worry about money anymore.
Can you tell us about your children and their names and
Okay.
in order, and then tell us something about them?
Reg is the oldest, and he is the one that made it possible to buy this little farm back in 1987. He had a family of 6 children, and he's the one where I went down and baptized that oldest son of his, my first great-grandchild, just a couple of weeks ago. After Reg, there's Ray, and he went on a mission to Canada, and when he was there, the Lamanite generation from BYU went up there, and we got a phone call from him. He said, "I saw the girl I'm going to marry in the Lamanite generation," and that was Millie. And she was a beautiful girl, beautiful Navajo girl. And so when he came home from his mission, boy, he got out of his suit and went right down to BYU to find out where she lived. And she wouldn't go out with him at first. Didn't want to have anything to do with him, but he finally won her heart. And they were married, and they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, 3 boys and 2 girls. And they have lived close by. Well, they lived in American Fork for a while. Now they live right up the street, about a block away from here. But his oldest girl is married. His oldest boy is married. He's got 2 unmarried children, a boy and a girl. All of Rick's kids are married. Then David was next. And as I say, he's become inactive. Don't want to offend him with anything, but maybe not better not to put anything in there about that. But he is inactive, and he had 1 girl and 4 boys, and all the 4 boys are just like him. They won't have anything to do with his church, but his daughter is very faithful. Then Debbie come next, and she had 2 sons by her first marriage, but found out that he was a rascal, and she divorced him and married Mike Phillips, and they've had 2 children between them. Then there's Denise, the 5th, and she has 1, 2, 3 boys, 4 boys, and 1 girl. And they're all married but 1 boy now. So that's about all I can say about my family. I have 55 greats now. I have 27 grandchildren and 55 great-grandchildren. I don't even know them all. They come around here, who do you belong to? I have to say, what's your name?
Tell us about Alta. And I know you love her dearly, but tell us, give us your heartfelt feelings about Alta.
When we moved into Alpine, Alta went to the Relief Society president and said, I want the names of 2 families that are really down and out in every way you can think of, that I can assist and help. One of them was Helen Dieters, and the other was, I can't remember their name, up here on the hill. But she went up that with her, I went with her that time, and she knocked on that door and said, my name is Alta Garrett, and I'm here to help you in any way I can. Because she found out that her husband had cancer. And he was in bed, he couldn't even get out of bed, hardly. And she would go up every day and rub him down with oils, just to try and make him more comfortable. And Helen Dieters, boy, I would have given up on her a long time ago, but Alda persisted with her and worked and worked and worked. Finally got her active again, coming back to church. And very happy. So I kind of tell a little bit about the personality of Alta and what she was. A very loving, gentle, persuading person. And the night she died was a Sunday night, and all of the grandkids were here, except Coda Garrett, that's Ray's boy. He was on his way down here from Montana. I could tell Alta was near the end, but she said, there's 1 grandson I haven't talked to yet, Ralph. I said, well, he's on his way here. That was Coda, and he finally got here about 10 o'clock at night. Went down and knelt beside her bed and held her hand and talked. And after that, Alda looked at me. She said, that's it, Ralph. She closed her eyes, and that was it. She just wanted to talk to all those grandkids before she died and tell them how much she loved them. So, that was quite a night. I always remember she had a hold of my hand, and she had it so tight I couldn't hardly get it away from her. And I told my kids, I said, you got to come and hold your mother's hand for this time and see the strength that she still got in her physical body. And they were all amazed at the strength. I mean, I just finally got like, I had to do that to get rid of our handshake. But she's well missed. Can't wait to see her again. I hope I'm worthy of her. That's my big problem now, being worthy of her, to make sure I get where she is.
Can you tell a little bit about when you sealed Elizabeth and Isaac and them coming?
When what?
When you performed the sealing for Elizabeth and Isaac,
Yeah.
and you actually sealed her to our family first.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could tell a little bit about that and how, remember when we got them together and then as they were coming down the aisle.
Yeah, I was in the temple one day when Isaac and Elizabeth were coming, and they came to my sealing session quite often. But I saw those two holding hands walking down that hallway and just brought tears to my eyes to think, well, this is going to happen. Two of the sweetest people I've ever known are going to be sealed together for time and for all eternity. Well, after I learned more about Elizabeth and what hardships she had had to face in her country, and finally made it to a home where she was well loved and instructed, and just became a real part of that family. And then she met Isaac, and I thought, boy, this is a match made in heaven for those two. And wasn't any doubt in my mind at all. And then I saw them walking down that hallway in the temple and brought tears to my eyes when I saw them holding hands, and just as sweet a couple as you'll ever want to see. And they've got two beautiful kids. They don't get any better looking, those two beautiful kids of yours now. And so it was a great blessing to be sealing and being able to seal my own grandkids, and well, just no feeling I can express it. So much gratitude and peace that comes to one when you have that opportunity to do that to someone that close to you.
Do you have any spiritual experiences that you want to share?
Well, it was if you were in tune, you can look at people in that sitting room and tell something's going on. And that happened to me 4 or 5 times. And especially for this one beautiful blonde girl, I could tell she had problems. So I asked her to stay after the session was over. All I said to her is, "Are you okay?" And she started crying, put her head right on my shoulder. Just cried hard. And beautiful blonde, I mean, she is one beauty. And she just told me about getting a divorce. And we've become just like that since then. She comes over here, and I've been over their house to dinner for them. But she did find somebody to marry. It took her through the temple again and got sealed. Another one, same thing. It's through a divorce. I can just tell when you're looking at people in there. There's problems. I had the opportunity several times to just talk to them and encourage them and give them some direction and things like that. Very blessed. Very much of a blessing in my life. And this one girl that's so beautiful, she still calls me on the phone. In fact, I talked to her just the other day. Still, it's that kind of a friendship. So it's a marvelous thing to be sealed in the temple for time and for all eternity. Well, I have a strong testimony. Boy, I thought I had a strong one in my 70s, but going to the temple and learning what you learn there is there's nothing like it. And that has brought my testimony to the strength where I wouldn't do anything knowledgeable, wrong. It's a great blessing to be a temple worker, and especially if I get that sealing power. And I know I can still do all my grandkids if I live long enough. Not sure how much longer that'll be, but it would be nice if I can. But Abram was my oldest, her first great-grandchild to seal with Annie Gilbert. We got to stay on that wonderful path that our prophet talks about every time he gets up, and keep ourselves there so that we can all be together when we get there.
Do you want to tell us, what do you remember about the character of your father and your mother?
Well, I know they were temple workers on Tuesday and Wednesday night, ever since I can remember. And I thought, I got to set one goal in mind in my life to try and be temple workers longer than they were. Well, they were temple workers for 30 years, and I was a temple worker for 32 years. So that's one goal that I reached that I'm very happy that I could. But Mom, Monday morning would be washing downstairs. Tuesday was ironing day. Tuesday night was temple night. Wednesday night was temple night. And it was, my dad would do anything he could do to make $1. I can remember in those days. They were tough days. During the Depression, growing up and watching, well, they had to cut, we had the Tower Theater on 9th East and 9th South in Salt Lake. On Saturday, you could get in that place for a dime and watch cowboy shows all day long. Well, there's not very many times that my mother had a dime that she could give me to go to that place. Things were that tough in those days. And that's why Dad started working at the growers market even, so he'd have food to bring home from the farmers from Bountiful and area would come. You know how much a case of raspberries was in those days? And he would drive that old Model A Ford down here after he sold his Model T, take out the back seat, come down Pleasant Grove and buy raspberries for 60 cents a case, 12 cups. And he'd go up Salt Lake and sell them for 75 cents. That's the kind of profit he made. I can remember gasoline. We'd go out that Davis Associated service station, Dad's Model A Ford. That's when they'd fill that top tank up on the hood. Do you remember those? Those old Model A Fords and fill up on top, and 11 cents a gallon. There at that, and he was good friends. That guy's name was Davis. I still remember his name. He was on about 1650 South 11th East. I can still remember that. And as I was growing up in Salt Lake, we used to have a neighborhood track meet. We'd run around those city blocks twice, and that was a mile. That would be 8 blocks. We figured that was a mile. Twice around was half a mile. We made our own high jump standards. We'd go out to Granite Furniture and they'd give us those big bamboo poles that they'd roll carpet up on. used those for pole vaulting, high jumping. We shot put. We had a shot put that we'd have those neighborhood track meets. Oh, at least once a week, just to keep ourselves busy. Fishing was probably our favorite thing to do. We'd go up to East Canyon or up on the Weber there and camp out and fish. That was the only thing we'd do as a family, except when Uncle Hewitt, with my mother's brother, got a car. We went to California only once that I can remember, when Uncle Hewitt drove us there to Uncle Bobby's, who was another brother of my mother. Most of our vacations were just a good fishing trip up on the Weber and Provo rivers. Dad had some favorite places to go. We'd go up on the Strawberry once in a while. We would go to Idaho to see Mother's brother in Burley, Idaho. But those fishing trips are what I remember. I haven't been fishing in Utah now, though, since I caught that big salmon up there in Alaska. But
you love fishing.
I love fishing. All of us love fishing.
And your dad loved fishing.
Oh, couldn't keep him off the streams.
Did you have a fishing boat?
No, we didn't have a fishing boat. We all fished from the shore. Even on the Strawberry, we just fished from the shore. I do remember one time when I took my family up the Strawberry and we had a boat, and then we got caught in a storm and run out of gas. And there we are out in that middle of that Strawberry Reservoir, and finally the guys where we launched the boat knew we hadn't come in yet, so they come looking for us and found us and pulled us in. So that scared us all to death.
I've been there. We've had similar experiences. I know how scary that is.
Yeah, boy, I'll say. But we never, they didn't have any money to take us on a big vacation anywhere. That's why we could just go fishing.
So what are some of the things you've done with your kids and your family growing up?
Well, we've gone to places like Disneyland. After, I got that boat, and I said to my sons, I get off of work at 5 o'clock. If I come home and the gardens are weeded, the lawn's cut, everything's in order, we'll just jump in the car. And I took my house trailer up and left it at Echo Reservoir. I said, we'll go off to the reservoir and stay overnight. And we'd go up there Friday night, and we'd be the only boat on that whole reservoir. And Saturday morning, we'd get up at 6 o'clock and start skiing. We'd be the only boat there until about 10 o'clock when people started arriving. Then we'd come home. And that was just about every weekend when I had that boat. We would go up there. And then if I had 2 weeks off in the summer, we'd go down to Lake Powell, go around there. And that reservoir up there, where was that? Can't even remember the name of it. Not Deer Creek, another reservoir out in Uinta somewhere. Can't remember the name of it. But we used to go up there quite a bit.
Jordanelle.
Who?
Jordanelle.
Jordanelle. No, that's just up by Park City, isn't it? No, it's farther up than that. I can't remember.
Echo.
Echo. We used to go up to Deer Creek a lot too. After we moved down away from Hennifer. See, I'd just take the boat down to Hennifer and leave it at Alda's brother's house, so I didn't have to bring that back and forth every time. We just jump in the car and go up and hook onto it. It's 4 miles down the road, and that saved us a lot of time. And we'd take it back down there when we were through that Saturday morning. So,
Can you tell me anything that you remember about Ray and Delora?
Not anything specific, except they lived in that upstairs apartment, Sugar House. I can remember that.
You're talking about your grandparents.
Oh, that's Ray and Delora.
Ray and Delora lived in the White House.
On
And
21st, but
your
before that,
parents lived up.
before that, they lived in a little apartment upstairs there on 21st South. And
Ray and
then,
Delora did?
uh-huh.
Where
Then they
was that?
moved in that nice house on 21st South and 13th East.
So where were they before that?
They were down there on 21st South somewhere. I can't remember just how far. Not too far down.
Upstairs apartment?
Yeah, just upstairs apartment. I can remember when Ray brought that 36 Plymouth, and he had to go in the service, and he had to leave that home to me. Felt sorry for him. So I had the 36 Plymouth to drive around for till I went in the service. Then I don't know what happened to that car. That was before he was married, you know, when he bought that Plymouth.
Lucky you.
Huh?
Lucky you.
Lucky me. I felt bad. I said, Ray, I'm sorry you have to leave this car to me, but I'm glad.
Do you have anything else that you want to leave your posterity, you know, with, or just feelings about something? I was asking about Ray and Delora because we've got some interviews of theirs, and I might want to intersperse. What do you know about Ray and Delora's characters?
Well, I know Ray was, I always looked up to Ray as an example that I wanted to be like. I can remember that. Delora, can't remember much. I can remember her. She could sing, but I don't remember much about her. I just remember Ray was an example to me, and I wanted to grow up and be just like him. He was a good brother. I can't remember anything specific.
Can you think of anything about your grandma and grandpa, or your parents?
Well, I only had one grandma. That's
Okay.
the only one,
And that's
Grandma Tolman.
What do you know about her?
I used to go over on every Saturday morning and mow her lawn. And she'd give me 15 cents. That was a lot of money. In fact, I went to conference, took Tessie to conference with me, and I said, I got to show you the house I was born in. So I took her out there to Princeton Avenue and went up there and knocked on the door and said, I'm Ralph Garrett. I'm not here to scare you or do anything else, but I just need to let you know that I was born in this house. And that really surprised me. They invited us right in and showed us around. It changed a little bit, but it's pretty much the same as it was when I was there. And so,
What was the address to that?
1136, I think it was, 1136 East Princeton Avenue.
Do you remember anything else about your grandma Tolman besides?
No, that she was very sweet to me, and we got along well. That's after I moved to 533 South 10th East, that I'd go back there, you know, and where I was born, we were only a block away from her. But I'd go back from 533 over to Harvard Avenue, which is almost to 13th South. I have to walk over there every Saturday morning. And oh, I know one thing. I had an old bicycle, and you didn't have any money to buy good new tires, and so we'd put a hose, dig a hole in that bicycle tire, and screw a hose all the way around it. And we used to ride around on that, I can remember. Oh, you didn't have money to do anything in those days, I can remember that. Boy, you got a penny's worth of candy, and you got a lot of candy. Straight Bake Store on 5th South and between 11th and 12th East. Funny thing is, I've met a son of that Straight Bake down here now, and that's where I buy my pellets from that guy now. It's funny how you come across people.
Tell us about your land here, and like, didn't you have horses and things?
Well, I used to show horses. I had some real good blooded horses. Got up from Jim Allen and started. In fact, the one horse I got was out of War Glory, famous racehorse. And I won the Intermountain Futurity Horse Show with him. We just showed the horses, or just stand and hold them and stand them right, you know. And I won the Intermountain Futurity with him. And he was still a stallion. And I looked out in the field where I had him one day, and there was a little kid with his head inside that fence. You know, it's just a pole fence. And I thought, holy smoke, that horse would get a hold of that kid, because he was a stallion. And they don't have the nicety that the mare has, you know. So I had him cut. And then I sold him, and he died about a month after I sold him to that guy. Don't know what happened or what the reason was or anything. But I had some good horses in those days. And when I went in the service, no, not in the service, when I went, where did I go? Had to go somewhere, but I gave each one of the kids a real good mare. That's why they've got so many horses now. And that's where the kids raised up there with Tessie now, up in Ten Sleep, Wyoming, herding cattle and branding. And there's a 12-year-old kid up there doing the castrating. I went up there with them last year and watched them. You know, they separate the cows from the calves, and boy, it's a noisy. The moms are mooing, the calves are mooing, and they don't shut up. They want to get back together, you know, but we have to separate them. And a couple of guys on horses go out, and one has to lasso his hind feet, drag him into where we're going to brand him. And they catch his head and everything, and kind of a little trap, you know, so they can stretch him right out. Then they bring that hot branding iron. Oh, those little guy's beller, when that hits him, that burns, that smokes, you know. Mm. And that little 12-year-old kid sits on the middle of him and sits and cuts the testicles out of that little guy. Don't deaden him or anything.
Turns the bull into a steer, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, 12 years old is all he was. Yeah. He was there with that butcher knife and just...
That's hard.
That made me appreciate beef more than ever when I watched that. Well, like I say, I got 4 typewritten pages of my history, and I thought I was doing good, and then I get books like that. And like Ray's and Isaac, Garrett, he sent me a book.
Not Isaac, but Lynn.
Well, that's from Lynn, but I got one from Isaac. No, Lynn.
Isaac?
No, Isaac didn't get 5. No, not Isaac. Just that's Lynn. That's who I'm thinking of.
Lynn, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this, you have to remember that Delora did all this. Delora made the scrapbook.
Did she really?
Yeah, she made 17 scrapbooks.
Holy smoke.
So the next one we'll do is on her. Will be her picture in the front.
Boy.
And then she did 2 with raising the children.
I remember Ray in that uniform on the back when he went in the service.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I'm next. When we got married, everybody was mad. She had turned just 17 years old on August 29th, and this is September 28th following. And she said, Ralph, I'm not going home. I'll stay here with Aunt Dorothy, because she'd had that deal with that kid from Ogden. He got blamed for his death and really broke her heart. And so we got married at 5:08 p.m. They took us to dinner, and by the time we got through with everything, it was 10 o'clock at night. We jumped in Joe's car, Joe and Lois's car, and thought, well, they're going to take us home now. We got out on the highway, and Joe said, get out of the car, you're on your own. I said, what? He says, yes, get out of the car. I'm not going to take you home. So we got out of the car, and here I am with that beautiful girl, 10 o'clock at night, thumbing 40 miles. And a big truck stopped with a big trailer on. Said, where are you going? And I said, we're going to Corona. And he said, well, I'm not going through Corona, but I'm going through Riverside. And Riverside's only 13 miles from Corona. So we got into Riverside, and we got out of the car, and we counted up our money together. And we had enough money to take a taxi cab the 13 miles to Corona. By that time, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had to be back to base by 7. So I said, honey, I'm just going to tuck you in, and I'm going to go back to base. So I tucked her in and went back to base. But I had, it was Saturday by then, and I had Liberty again at 12 o'clock on Saturday. So now you know the rest of the story.
So
This is Alta's first painting right here that she brought home, and amazed me at her talent. I mean, even the details on that tree surprised me.
And she did that in what year?
1984.
What year did she do that one?
She didn't put the date on this. No. She didn't put the date on this, just signed Alta.
Yeah, the detail is amazing.
It is. And the trees on that one.